Hi YouTubers, it is I, the Hellgear, movie review time once again. And it is one of a couple of movie reviews from Disney that you'll catch me doing this year. I wanted to do one of The Incredibles 2, but you know, it's kind of past that time right now. So I figure I'll do another wonderful Disney live action film that is out in theaters, or at least still, and that is Christopher Robin! So if you agree with or disagree with anything that I may have to say in this movie review, let me know in the comments section below. Also share what you thought of this movie in the comments section below if you have seen it. But without further ado, let me take a quick sip of my chocolate milk, and then I'll talk about this here movie, aka the Winnie the Pooh movie. Throat's a bit hoarse there, folks. Every child has their own set of friends, and if you notice, Christopher Robin has his set of friends that reside in one of the most notorious areas in Disney lore. So notorious that it's even made its way into Square Enix's world of Kingdom Hearts, the 100-acre wood. This imaginary place, which resides in England, is home to the 100-acre woodland creatures known to all of us as Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Eeyore, Rabbit, Gopher, Kangaroo, and Owl. Now, just to do a little bit of housekeeping, Christopher Robin would frequently visit this 100-acre wood to play with his animal friends. The majority of them are stuffed toys, with the exception of Rabbit, Owl, and Gopher. Now, to be honest with you, Gopher is nowhere to be found in this movie. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, you know. Everyone else they keep true to, and they have their appearances, you know. But not seeing Gopher doesn't knock away any points off the scoreboard. Now, if they'd have taken away somebody important, like Tigger, then you would have had a problem. Thank goodness Tigger is here, along with Kangaroo and Owl and Rabbit, and everyone else. And throughout his childhood, Christopher Robin would go on many adventures with Pooh and the 100-acre woodland animals. With that housekeeping said, it's time to talk about what's going on in this movie. So, there comes a time in every child's life where they must do the one thing that is unthinkable. They have to grow up and live their lives. And that's essentially the whole deal with how this story begins. It's Christopher Robin's last day in the 100-acre wood. His friends are throwing him a goodbye party. And of course, being the childlike, innocent boy that Christopher Robin is, says that he would never, ever, ever forget Pooh and the crew. And of course, Pooh leaves that olive branch that says, "Hey, feel free to come back anytime. I'll be waiting for you." That's just textbook Pooh. Now, what's interesting about this is that we don't get really CGI as far as Pooh and the woodland creatures. They're not just 3D imaging that the camera would just place a light in and then they would digitally place said character in. No, that's not the case. In this movie, they actually are stuffed toys walking around, seemingly like puppets, and that works very, very well to me. In fact, that's one of the things that makes them so realistic. After the goodbyes, however, we see Christopher Robin begin his life. At first, he thinks often about his friends while he's growing up, but as time moves on, he grows up, he gets married, he has a family, and a job that's driving him bonkers. Yeah, textbook grown-up stuff, right, folks? And in the process of all this, he does the same thing that many of us adults do as we grow older. We forget what it's like to be a child. We forget a lot of the childhood memories that we had and many of the childhood lessons we learned as a kid. It's the reason why they call it childhood, right? The problem is Christopher Robin is suffering from what I like to call worker bee syndrome. And worker bee syndrome is something that many adults suffer from in this world. It is essentially the adults who simply want to, wow, that's just terrible English. I apologize for that. Simply want to simply. That's just terrible. My English teachers would have my head if they heard me say something so grammatically grotesque. Essentially, you work until you keel over and die. And that is no way for someone to live their life. Especially a family man. Because work takes over everything. It takes over the fact that you have a family. It takes over the fact that you should be spending time with your family. And it puts you in that situation where you are silently crying out for help. You ignore everything else in your social life and your free life only to focus on work. And this is no way for adults, let alone in the fictional world, but we adults in the real world should live. It's like that saying, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. When it should be, work makes you dull without rest. And I know that's something that's very hard to hear, but this is essentially the big issue of everyday life. And that's what I like about Christopher Robin, because in light of it being a family film, it's essentially a family film, but portrays itself as a slice of life film. You know, people can relate to working so hard that they have no time for themselves or their families or doing things in their own free time, whether it be with your neighbors or just to kick back and unwind from work. You know, it's the silent cry for help. Now, many people have seen the trailers for Christopher Robin, probably first on Twitter, myself included. Probably some on Facebook have run around. I'm not sure if there have been some trailers running around on Facebook, but Twitter and YouTube, they've been showing them. And then we get that amazing moment of almost crazy clarity when Christopher Robin, as an adult, sees his old teddy bear friend, Winnie the Pooh, in the real world, outside of the 100-acre wood. Pooh's reasoning is simple. I'm done waiting. Let me go visit you for a change. Ooh, excuse me. Now, of course, being a toy, this causes many, many problems in the real world. I shouldn't have to take a page from Doc McStuffins to clarify this one, but grown adults talking to toys in public makes you seem like you've lost your mind. And it's not a really good look. For you, anyway. But as far as Pooh, well, it actually is an interesting look, because unlike how you would see them here on this poster, on this little infogram, the toys in the movie actually look a lot older. Eeyore is a lot fuzzier. You can tell he's more fuzzier than he appears to be. Piglet's woolly fabric is stretched out. Tigger has some gray. Can you believe it? Tigger has gray in him. I never thought I would see Tigger with gray. And I know some of us people, we trip out when we see gray hairs, but Tigger is gray. You should see the grayness in Tigger in this movie. My God, he's gray. And Pooh, you can tell he's up in the years. And even though everyone of the 100-acre woodland creatures are up in the years, what makes this so nostalgic is that they have kept their voice actors. Thank you for keeping childhood. You know, a lot of these childhood reincarnations have been terrible so far. Especially what Cartoon Network's going to do with Thundercats. That abomination. But Disney, they kept true to it. You know, we have the original Pooh and Tigger and Piglet and Eeyore. Still alive, thank goodness, and still reprising their roles of the 100-acre woodland creatures. I think Roo is different, but I can't be too sure. But essentially, grown-up Christopher Robin sees this is something that should not be and decides, let's get you back into the wood. Now, of course, since this all takes place in England, especially England after the war, England, of course, is dank, and I just don't understand why. But it's very, very dank, and the interaction between grown-up Christopher Robin and Pooh is almost priceless. You can tell that he's frustrated with his friend that clearly doesn't understand. At least to him, he doesn't think that Pooh understands the whole purpose of being grown up. But if there's one thing that I've learned about Winnie the Pooh, you know, as an adult myself and watching him and his cartoon adventures and even reading up on the books, is that even though he's the, quote, silly, silly, silly old bear, unquote, he has a better understanding of the world than everybody thinks he does. And it's good that he has a better understanding of the world, because it seems to make Christopher Robin slap himself, not physically, but metaphorically slap himself in the face and realize just how wrong he is. Especially when he goes back to the 100-acre wood and he notices things aren't exactly as they should be, or at least how they were when he left as a child. Now, yes, I've mentioned, and I believe I did mention this, the toys being older, they're not doing like that, they're really there. But when it comes to CGI, we don't really get too much, except for the scene where grown-up Christopher Robin encounters the Heffalump. And we're not talking about Lumpy, folks. Not that Heffalump, another Heffalump. And that scene just looks so surreal. But in light of it being so surreal, it makes the most sense. Because, again, if there are two creatures in the wood that everybody fears, outside of Lumpy, it's Heffalumps and Woozles. I would have loved to see a Woozle, because Woozles don't really appear in this movie. That's unfortunate. But it's alright, we got the Heffalump. And the funny thing is, even though Christopher Robin takes place in England, during the trailers of this movie, we learn about another English live-action thing by Disney that's coming back to theaters soon, and that is Mary Poppins. So be sure to prepare yourselves for another spoonful of sugar. When Christopher Robin finally gets back to his part of the world, he's in so much trouble with his job already. Again, this is his silent cry for help, because he works too much, he doesn't have time to spend with his family. And it's at this point where Pooh decides, well, you've helped me out a lot. Let me return the favor for once. And the turning point of the movie, at least to me, isn't the fact that Pooh decides to help Christopher Robin in his grown-up time, but the fact that Pooh meets Christopher Robin's daughter. And that was actually one of the funnest parts of the movie, because she actually asks, what's a Tigger? And if you are aficionado to the Winnie the Pooh series, you already know what happens when you ask about a Tigger. And yes, we got the entirety of the wonderful thing about Tiggers, which just melts at my heart because it's my childhood, it's nostalgia, and you love that sort of thing. When you see something like this, you want to see the movie that takes you back. Yes, it's a family thing, but as I said, it's a family thing. When I tell my other people, it's a family movie, but it's set up like slice of life. And that's what's so enjoyable about it, because in addition to the usual stuff that you're accustomed to, as you're watching this short movie, and I forget how short this is, it's probably like an hour and a half or something, hour and 40 minutes. It's a short movie, but it's very enjoyable because there are moments where you'll laugh, there are moments where you'll smile, there are many more moments that will take you back to your childhood if you've grown up watching Winnie the Pooh. You know, even if you remember the old theme song to the cartoon that used to come on Saturday mornings, which in the description below are the lyrics. But it is great to see how do I want to say this properly? It incorporates the next generation into Pooh Bear. And even though this is what I like to nickname as the Winnie the Pooh movie, it makes a lot of sense because the yellow bear is not just the star of the show, he steals the show. Christopher Robin, even though is the main emphasis of the story, actually plays second fiddle to the bear, at least in my opinion, as well he should. But his saving grace comes near the end of the movie, and I love this because he realizes that he's been wrong, you know, and that's the hardest thing as living, breathing, working adults that we really don't like to do. And it's admit when we've been working too long, that we need to disconnect from everything. Christopher Robin gives us a lot of things. It gives us many trips down memory lane in our childhood. It teaches us lessons. It makes us laugh. It makes us smile. It makes you sit there and enjoy this movie. And for a family movie that's set up like a slice of life, you relate to it. You know, you relate to the fact that people work too hard and they just need to unwind. They need to just let go of working to enjoy their life with their family, their friends, their neighbors, time to themselves. Just break away from work for a while. Yes, working is good. You have to work for your future, but if you're not happy with your life while you're working, because you're working to give yourself a better life. If you're working and it's not giving you a better life emotionally, is it really the best job in the world? And that's one of the things that this movie, it just speaks to me as well as other viewers. And I had a good time with all of this, you know, because it's that slice of life that I can relate to, that takes me back to my childhood, that has me singing in the seats during the wonderful thing about Tiggers, and watching how a grown man's past is slapping himself metaphorically in the face to remember what you've forgotten all over again, because it might just save you, and it actually does. These are the reasons why I give Christopher Robin a perfect score. And I don't give movies perfect scores often. They have to earn it. But this one has just about everything. You learn from it, you love from it, you relate to it. And when Christopher Robin finally has the time with his 100-acre woodland family and his real family, it all makes perfect sense. And what I will say is this: stick around for a while during the end credits of the movie. You might see something pretty cool. Is this worth seeing in the theaters? Yes, it is. Is it worth getting on Disney Digital and Blu-ray? Sure, go for it. You know, this will teach your kids about the silly old bear and the boy, now a man, who shared the adventures with him. This isn't one more adventure with my old friends before I go back to my adult life. This is my life as a child telling me as an adult, you forgot what I taught you, and now I'm going to force you to remember this so it can one day save you, and it does eventually save you. And that's all I'm going to say about this Christopher Robin, aka the Winnie the Pooh movie review. If you enjoyed yourself, show your love, hit the like button. Again, share your experiences with this movie along with your agreements and disagreements of my review in the comments section below. There are more movie reviews on the way, so be sure to subscribe and turn on those mobile notes. But for now, I take my bear to the 100-acre wood, 'cause I'm done. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.